So the front of the Irish Times this morning, neck strain ruled Levy out of the All Blacks win. This was just a minor kerfuffle in advance of the game when Dan Levy was ruled out on Friday afternoon, and it was general body tightness, general body soreness was what was told, and then it emerged that Dan Levy didn't want his medical information being made public, and now today apparently it's being made public.
It's a strange departure, isn't it?
Yeah.
I saw Rob Kitson at The Guardian giving out about Ireland's policy of keeping medical records secretive last week, and he got a bit of blowback for that, naturally, considering, you know, I think the goalposts have shifted somewhat over the last month since Johnny Sexton gave that interview, and I think it was actually to Darren where he was saying that, you know, my insurance costs are ballooning because of my information leaking out there. So I think we all have a bit more sympathy for people keeping their medical records to themselves, and also as Irish rugby fans, and you know, it gives you not a competitive advantage, but there are elements where you're like, I can see why a coach or somebody involved in the camp would want to keep these things secret. So I don't have a big problem with it. I just wonder why this has now changed. Why have they changed the policy on Dan Levy?
So it's not, I don't know, but it's not IRFU policy. It's not Joe Schmidt's policy. It's the individual players are deciding.
Kitson did mention, so I need to get the tweet out, he did mention something about a blanket policy, or about that it was kind of a widespread thing, but maybe he meant on a case-by-case basis, and he was generalising that we're now at the point where Ireland have this process of not revealing medical information. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because the vague nature of the injury kind of seemed to be a cover for whatever it was that Dan Levy wanted to keep secret, and now it's out there, which just doesn't really make any sense, but such is life.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the build-up to games like that, stuff happens, players change their minds, it leaks out from somewhere, perhaps.
Maybe he thought he was genuinely going to be fit, and as I say there, that whole competitive thing, he thought, oh, I'm going to be targeted here if my particular injury gets out, and I've been a little bit sore this week, and then ultimately he didn't actually get himself into a position to play the game.
So they also have the Golf World Cup is on. We've got Shane Lowry and Paul Dunn, which is a good team. And then the soccer is on page 4. Ireland played a soccer match last night. It's on page 4. The fallout from our victory on Saturday is the first 2 pages. Now, maybe that's just the order of things anyway. And even if Ireland had beaten Denmark 5-0 last night, it wouldn't be on the first page of the sports section. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Ireland's campaign draws to a sorry conclusion. Everybody is bored. Players seem bored, the fans seem bored, the journalists seem a bit bored by the whole thing at this stage. It's like, how do we write this thing again? And that's it, 1 page. 1 page of soccer from an Ireland international last night. And that's it. There is as much horse racing in the papers, in the Irish Times today. But surely we're hurtling now towards a point where the football team can't be seen to be irrelevant. Like, you've got to make the team relevant.
Particularly the year we're going into. People give out about the idea of comparing and contrasting different sports, which I think there's a point in that sometimes. But when it comes to the actual performances of different sports teams, regardless of what the sports are, even if it's 2 different teams within the one organisation, I think those comparisons need to be there, because we've allowed ourselves to get lulled into the sense of mediocrity with the football team. And there are other sports, one sport in particular, that's showing us that we don't always need to have that attitude. And given the year that we've got coming up next year, it becomes, as you say, a live possibility that nobody cares about Irish football anymore. But then again, that is sort of, I'm not sure if that's true either. I do think we care. Like, it is boring, but that is separate from the idea of not caring.
Well, there's apathy now. Like,
I'm not sure about that. Like, I care about the fact that Ireland are dreadful to watch. I'm not sure has it actually translated into apathy just yet. Like, why was there John Delaney banners confiscated last night in Aarhus? Why are
well,
fans
but, I mean, you've got to be unbelievably committed to go to Aarhus for the last game.
True, I guess rubber. The people there aren't suffering from apathy, but I'm not sure. Like, are people
irrelevance? The team is irrelevant in the, like, there's a single page in the Irish Times sports section the morning after an Ireland match.
Yeah, it is. It is a worrying development. I just think
there's 2 pages on the rugby, which happened on Saturday. Now, granted, Ireland beat the best team in the world on Saturday, so it's a big deal.
You've picked one newspaper there. Like, I'll raise you any of the tabloids here in front of me about, on pages of football coverage, and we'll get a different picture. I mean, the Irish Times covers rugby more than football. It's simple as that.
Yeah, But on the morning after an Ireland game, they cover it more than they would normally do. There's only one reporter at it. Like, normally there would be colour pieces. Normally there would be...
On a dead rubber. Like, it is ultimately a dead rubber game.
That's the point. But that's where we got to.
I know we are, but I don't think it's as big a deal coverage-wise as you're making out. I think, obviously, the performance on the pitch kind of tell the full story.
O'Neill, I will carry on after tough year is the back page of the Times Ireland edition. Aki belongs in a green jersey, says Henderson. So Ian Henderson was doing media yesterday. You kind of forget there's another game this weekend. It's like, can we not just wrap up these November internationals and get back to club games?
Yeah. Or do we just want this Ireland beast to roll on and on and on? We were talking before the November internationals kicked off about the perfect rugby calendar. If we didn't have one more game this weekend, it would feel that way. That maybe it's just one game too long, the November series at this point.
Yeah, and we normally don't have 4 games except when we go to America to line our pockets with cash.
But once that lining of the pocket starts, it won't stop.
Fill our wheelbars with dollars. No fairy tale entrance. Obafemi debut fails to lift gloom as Ireland grind out goalless draw. I mean, they didn't give him very long. He only had 10 minutes, right? Like, you think if you're going to, give the kid a chance to have an impact, give him a half. Murray and Farrell are coming back. That's the good news from a Munster perspective. And that's that. They're the deflation once again. The nation once again. That's the pun.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you? O'Neill's enthusiasm undimmed as Ericsson claims Ireland were scared to go forward. I mean, he's right. We were, fair cop, Christian Eriksen. You're good at football. We're not good at football. Fair enough. We get it.
It's bad that we're at the point now where the opposition hates playing with us. Like, we're like that crap golfer, and the rest of the friends are like kind of awkwardly saying, why don't you just go for a pint in the clubhouse there? We're going to play 9 holes.
Yeah, you can fart indoors as well if you want.
We really hate playing with you. That's what other nations' attitude is towards us now, which is very, very sad.
We're not afraid of Might Bite. Tizard's fancy native river to prevail again when Gold Cup rivals meet in Betfair Chase rematch. So the Tizard team insists they're not afraid of taking on Might Bite again as they prepare native river for Gold Cup rematch in the Betfair Chase at Haydock on Saturday. We'll talk about that on Friday Night Racing with Johnny.
It's 5 pages of soccer coverage, 2 pages of rugby coverage in the Heralds this morning. Oba and out, says the back page here. Michael makes his Ireland debut, but 2018 ends with dismal draw in Denmark. Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is going nowhere. O'Neill vows he'll stay on as Ireland round off bad year with dismal draw, while O'Brien's uphill battle to be fit for Six Nations. That is Sean O'Brien recovering from that broken arm sustained against Argentina. Back page of the Irish Daily Star then is thank God that's Oba. Michael saga ends well as grim year finishes with drab stalemate. Ericsson says Ireland are scared. Don't get too cocky, says Gareth Southgate of his players. And Tohill's compo concerns. So Anton Tohill has been speaking and saying that perhaps it's not the best idea that GEA clubs get some compensation for their young stars going to play with AFL teams. Back page of the Mirror then this morning is it's Martin O'Neill. Pressure on Boss to set the mount as he oversees stalemate number 2 of double header. And this story, which we'll get into a little bit later on, Pogba to say yes to Juve. Paul Pogba, according to sources close to him, friends at the touring club, and we can see the UK Mirror back page here. They've claimed that he's interested in going back. He wants to go back to tour in. Juventus also interested, according to reports over the last 24 hours, in signing Marcus Rashford. That's not what the Sun says, though. Real are mad for pair, it says up here at the top. Real Madrid potentially launching a £90 million bid for Marcus Rashford and Christian Eriksen. The main story, though, is all Oba Barrett is shouting, but O'Neill's defiant. And then a couple of the UK back pages. The Daily Telegraph goes with Gordon Taylor. Taylor faces calls to quit. PFA chief's position under threat as 300 players urge him to stand down, while negotiations over core funding from Premier League TV money is in doubt, and new accounts will infuriate families campaigning for dementia victims, which is Dawn Astle, namely, who's the daughter of Jeff Astle, who died as a result of CTE, really coming out to slam Gordon Taylor in the newspapers this morning. And then a special report leading the way in The Guardian. 4 years to go. Qatar on course for its improbable World Cup, says David Conn. Some interesting stuff in there. Now,
our AM breakfast menu. Scared Ireland, we've kind of covered that a little bit. Pogba and Rashford out. Irish Rugby Player of the Year. Is it a shoe-in for Johnny Sexton, or are there some other candidates? If Dan Levy had played in that game and we'd won, Would he have been the standout candidate for Player of the Year in Ireland? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. All Blacks warned, and 4 quarters of crazy last night. The highest ever over in an NFL game was blasted through, and almost double the points were scored as the Rams beat the Chiefs 54-51. 57, 54?
54-51.
54-51, 105 points. So, our first bit of the breakfast menu. Ireland scared?
Yeah, just briefly to touch on this again. Just if you missed the Christian Eriksen quotes last night, he says there was a lot of defending on Ireland's side. They play like this in every game we've played against them. I love that sort of idea that Christian Eriksen's like builds up this relationship where he's just bored of playing against the Republic of Ireland. In the second game in Ireland, they wanted to go forward, but they knew what happened, so that's probably why they're too scared to go forward. Now, is that the worst slight you can give to an Irish football team, that they're scared, that they no longer have the heart, they no longer have the balls to actually approach a game and actually go for it? And like, he's right in what he says. Like, you look at even some of the statistics, I do wonder if there's like fear in how they actually pass the ball. Of course, like, we don't pass the ball a lot. We passed the ball 243 times last night compared to 753 times for Denmark. But then you get into the accuracy of that. Ireland had a 68% passing success rate and Denmark had a 91% passing success rate. And that like comes down to the idea of pressing, who's actually putting pressure on the opposition, and whether that's resulting in more errors and things like that. Or maybe we're just lacking that final bit of conviction, and that's actually manifesting itself in the quality of our passing and in a wider sphere of how we're actually playing the game.
We're like the lion in the Wizard of Oz. We've got no courage anymore. And that's it, it's over.
Sad.
Pogba and Rashford out. Is this going to happen? I mean, like, if you're at Man United, you've got to make a choice between Jose Mourinho and Paul Pogba and Marcus Rashford, if you're the Manchester United hierarchy. So, if you're Jose Mourinho and you don't think those players are the future because you want to fill your team with Nemanja Matic, Marouane Fellaini, then I guess you've got to burn them out if they're the thing that's stopping you from being successful, Jose.
Well, if the players want to get rid of Jose Mourinho, they should probably leak a story like this. Because, to me, it is a no-brainer. You get rid of Jose Mourinho if it's him or Rashford and Paul Pogba. Now, if it's Rashford or Paul Pogba, I would contend that you keep Marcus Rashford. But I think that's a story for another day. That's a much more of a closer thing. I think Rashford plus Pogba or Jose Mourinho, no question, you have to keep Rashford and Pogba. So the story is coming from a couple of the tabloids this morning. The Mirror saying that Pogba's told his former Juventus pals that he wants to leave, and that Juve are also monitoring Rashford. They're compiling a dossier on Marcus Rashford. The performance recently, like for Manchester United in general against Juventus, coming from behind to beat them in the Champions League, has probably piqued their interest. He scored more goals for England than Manchester United this season, though, Marcus Rashford, so I'm not sure if it's just going to be a United-only dossier that Juve are completing. They're also linked with David De Gea. So are Manchester United now turning into this club that Arsenal and Spurs have been over the past 10 years, where
their best players get picked off?
They've permanently become a second rung in Europe team.
Well, no, because they pay Alexis Sanchez 350 grand a year to sit on the bench. So, like, all of Europe knows that if you want to get paid the absolute peak, you can still go to Manchester United, and that's all that players ultimately. I'm sure they're really mad, absolutely desperately keen to win trophies. But equally, if somebody's offering you 200 grand and somebody else offering you 300 grand. You're having a conversation with 300 grand people first.
Yeah, it's true. Now, the thing is, apparently Real Madrid are also very interested in Marcus Rashford. This is from The Sun this morning. It is convenient that 2 Marcus Rashford stories have come out in the newspapers in the one morning. It's almost as if there's an agent there who's working his best to ensure this thing happens. Apparently there's going to be £90 million on the table for a double swoop of Rashford and Christian Eriksen. Now, if you're the Real Madrid hierarchy and you can spend less than 100 million and get those 2 players, you're doing it without question. Apparently Solari is a huge fan of Rashford and sees him as a long-term successor to Cristiano Ronaldo, and Eriksen is viewed as a long-term successor to Luka Modric. Now, I'm not sure if I buy the first part of that.
No.
That is what The Sun is reporting this morning.
Okay, I mean, that's like exactly what the agent would chisel out if you could. Oh, Rashford and Ronaldo, successor.
Their surnames both start with the same letter.
It's onomatopoeia. All right, so next one is the Irish Player of the Year. Brian O'Driscoll was on with Joe on last night, Monday night. He made the case that more than one Irish player could well be on the Player of the Year shortlist. Have a look.
Just one final thing, talking about all the performers, and I agree, Tadhg Furlong is just, is for me the best tight head in the world, and arguably should be in that shortlist for World Player of the Year. He's had an outstanding 18 months. But you look at the amount of ball carriers in this Ireland team now, with Ryan, Furlong, Healy, Peter O'Mahony, Stander, Josh van der Fleer picking really good angles, Devon Toner, probably not his greatest strength, but still a very efficient ball carrier and proficient too. I just think that we're blessed with how many ball carriers are in the team, and that everyone feels comfortable on the ball now, and it's a far cry from where we were, 7-8 years ago, when you had to go to a Stephen Ferris or a Sean O'Brien. That's no longer the case. Everyone can carry, and everyone's comfortable in the knowledge that there's a great chance of gain line success from whoever has it in their hands.
I mean, we were asking Alan Quinlan this on Monday morning about whether or not James Ryan is one of the best players in world rugby, and he was like, "Oh, I kind of feel like he's already one of the best second rows." But you get the feeling, like if you look at the age profile of James Ryan and where he is already at in terms of his dynamism, his ability to dominate the game, like he benchmarks against everybody else in his position as if they were 5 years, as if he were 5 years older. Like he's kind of got the strength of a 27, 28-year-old lock who's just coming into his peak at the moment, but he's 22.
Yeah, and he plays with that wisdom as well. Like, I'm pondering this morning whether or not Johnny Sexton is actually Irish Player of the Year. The thing is, I would be surprised if he didn't win World Rugby Player of the Year. O'Driscoll said last night that he's voting for Sexton. I don't know, I think James Ryan is Ireland Player of the Year, no? Tadhg Furlong is up there as well. Like, certainly Sexton is in the mix.
Let me just put you back to Ireland trailing against France in the first game, second game, and Sexton takes the risk of the crossfield kick to Keith Earls. Now, it's a brilliant bit of phenomenal athleticism from Keith Earls, and then it's the nuts to drop back in the pocket and go, I'm gonna kick this, no problem.
Let me take you back to the 5 million Man of the Match awards that James Ryan won on the path to Leinster winning the Heineken Cup. Was he Man of the Match against Argentina? Can't quite remember. Certainly, he's picked up way too many Man of the Match awards for us to count.
He's not 23 until next July.
It's scary.
He'll be 23 and a half when the World Cup is happening, which means he can have a 23 World Cup, a 27 World Cup, a 31 World Cup, and a 35 World Cup. He could have 4 World Cups as a second row.
And he'll win them all, probably, and he'll be Man of the Match in the final of all of them. I just think there's serious consideration.
He's pretty good.
That it just shows the strength of Ireland this year, because in any other year, it's like, no question, Sexton, given what he's done, absolute banker to win like Irish Player of the Year. And given the fact that he is, in my view, very, very close to winning World Player of the Year, it's bizarre that we're even having this conversation, but I think the likes of James Ryan and Tadhg Furlong definitely worth inclusion.
Yeah, Furlong, like, Furlong's, the genius of what's happening in Irish rugby at the moment, and you can't just credit it all to Joe Schmidt, is that, like, Furlong's got these soft hands that, like, can find players in space in a way that, you know, your props are supposed to put the ball under their arm, carry, make a few yards, and then smash somebody in a tackle, and then lift in the line-out. But he's got all that, and this kind of so centrally involved, a moment of genius and centrally involved in the try to Twickenham. Does Bundy score the try, or does it get laid off for somebody else? Is it his pass to Bundy and then Bundy finds somebody else?
Can't remember.
But in the middle of it all, there's Furlong with like a pirouette in the middle of it. And camouflage, like the type of stunts that you see in other sports that we've just ripped off and gone, yeah, we'll have that, and we can do it now.
The other rugby story you wanted to talk about this morning was the warning that we've now sent out to New Zealand. Rassie Erasmus and Eddie Jones have both been speaking yesterday, and Erasmus has been speaking about how the view of Ireland now changes, because he says there's a lot of expectations when you beat the All Blacks. Everyone then expects you to automatically beat everybody else, so people start coming for you and start to analyse you really hard to beat you because you just beaten New Zealand. But the problem is, what's our next big tournament? It is the Six Nations. Like, if there was a situation where people aren't already analysing Ireland to the nth degree before the Six Nations, well, that's ridiculous. I think this changes nothing. And I think we need to stop getting hung up on this obsession with the idea that we've sort of tipped off the world about our talents.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not true. Jones then...
Well, we did have a rugby columnist from New Zealand on yesterday who didn't know James Ryan's name.
That name slipped his mind. Give him the benefit of the doubt. He actually remembered his name before you tipped him off. So I think you're reading into that too much. Eddie Jones was saying that if he was Steve Hansen, he'd be hurting a lot right now.
You should just start getting the All Blacks names wrong, like Brody Sevilla and I'm trying to think of somebody else. Bowden McKenzie.
Bowden McKenzie, great name. He says that Hansen would have the knowledge that they're going to learn a lot from this game, that they'll come back stronger and better, blah, 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 blah. So they say, or Eddie Jones says, it's going to have no consequence whatsoever in the World Cup. None at all. Instead, it showed where rugby is going. And for once in a blue moon, Eddie Jones makes a point that we both agree with, that he says that the World Cup is wide open, that everybody can win it as a result of what we saw at the weekend. But really, Erasmus Jones saying that we've tipped off the world about that, and Jones kind of going a little bit further, saying, actually, this is going to have no bearing whatsoever in the World Cup, and there's probably more than enough truth in that.
Pre-season, you were talking about the LA Rams being a really good bet. What were they? 14 to 1?
12 to 1.
12 to 1. That was a good bet. They're now
and I didn't put any money on it.
They're now 10-1 after beating the Kansas City Chiefs 54-51. It's the first time in NFL history that both sides have scored 50 points in a game. I think there were 5 touchdowns in the last quarter.
Yeah, something like that.
4 lead changes.
Yeah. So Jared Goff described it, the LA quarterback, as 4 quarters of craziness. It's the highest scoring game in the history of Monday Night Football. It's the 3rd highest total ever for an NFL game. There was a game in 1966 that finished 72-41, which was between Washington and the New York Giants. And then the other one that's in the top 3 is Cincinnati beating Cleveland 58-48 in 2004. The performance of Patrick Mahomes last night was absolutely incredible. And I don't mean it in terms of it being flawless. It was far from it. So, first of all, he threw a career-high 478 yards. He threw for 6 touchdown passes. So that was a tied career best for any Monday Night Football game in history. But he had 2 fumbles and 3 interceptions as well. So there was a lot to write home about in terms of negatives around Mahomes last night. But this was only the 4th time this season a team lost when scoring 40 or more points. Not only the 4th time. It is the 4th time. Somebody scored 40 points and lost a game of football this season. It is the most in the history of the Super Bowl era. And what are we in, like 8 games in? No, 11 games in at this point. So it's like there's some crazy statistics doing the rounds as well about the Chiefs, who are actually averaging more points in their defeats this season than they are in their victories. Like you can go through all the statistics from that game last night, and as Goff says, 4 quarters craziness probably sums it up quite well, because all the record books are just being thrown out the window. Yeah. There's just anomalies left, right and centre. If you haven't tuned in yet, now would be a good time. Next couple of weeks going to be pretty good as well. So that was probably a Super Bowl preview. Good chance, or well, maybe the Saints actually could knock off the Rams. Who knows? But there's a way to go, and there's lots of points being scored, lots of athleticism on show, and lots of offensive talent on show too.